For many years, fans have speculated about Daenerys Targaryen's childhood and her recollections from those days. There seem to have been consistencies in the visions that Dany has, the main one being that growing up in Braavos and seeing a lemon tree is not something that tracks. Lemon trees are not native to Braavos, which has led many to theorize that Dany was in fact not in Braavos during this time of her childhood. Fuel was definitely added to the fire when George R. R. Martin alluded to this being the case when answering a fan's question many years ago. The question from the fan went as so. Dany remembers a lemon tree outside the house with a red door in Braavos, but citrus trees shouldn't really grow in Braavos' cold, foggy climate. Is this difference significant? Does it point to future revelations about Dany's past? George R. R. Martin, always being sly, answered like this. Very perceptive of you. Yes, it does point to, well, that would be telling. George leaves it very ambiguous, but gives us enough breadcrumbs to send us all into theory mode, and the fandom did just that. And while we don't have an answer to the questions that are posed by this theory, we do have an Easter egg from House of the Dragon Season 1 that gives a nod to this theory of Lemongate. Larys and Alicent are talking in Episode 5 of House of the Dragon near the site of the weirwood tree. Larys begins to talk about how a native plant from Braavos shouldn't be able to grow in King's Landing, claiming it is an outsider among the natives. Larys is clearly playing to Alicent's feelings of loneliness and seclusion, but the more important piece is that while they are having this conversation, an image is seen in the background just over Larys' shoulder that shows, yes, you guessed it, a lemon tree front and center. Ryan Condell is a huge fan of the source material and also theories from this fandom, so one has to assume this was intentionally placed and worded to give us all something to go in and rave about. Ryan Condell is a huge nerd, just like us, confirmed.
The idea that Dany is actually raised in Dorne, not necessarily over in Essos. Or obviously she goes to Essos at some point, and she would be there when she's very young. I don't know. I've always been sort of on the fence about this one, and it's one of those that I think will ultimately get enough information in Winds of Winter, should or if it ever comes out, to see if Dany does make allegiances or alliances with Dorne, which I think is I think Dorne is going to reach out even further to her. Check my Aegon's crown. Where is Aegon's crown and where is Blackfire theories I've talked about a little bit as well, to get more information on that. You know, unfortunately, Game of Thrones, the show, the first time the show ever really dipped was when they sort of introduced some of the Dorne arcs that they were going to go down, and they just completely ran away from it. So it's, you know, who knows how that would have progressed had the Dorne angle been just as good as everything else. Nonetheless, the nod, it is certainly a nod to that theory in House of the Dragon, without question.
Yeah, and the first time I watched this scene, whenever Larys is talking about this Braavos plant sitting there, growing in King's Landing out of its element, I immediately thought of Lemongate, but I didn't actually see the picture of the lemon tree behind Larys until the next day when I rewatched it. You know, I always just look for other things, right? Other details when we're covering the show. And seeing that lemon tree, I was like, oh my God, there's no way that this is a coincidence. And I'll put on my tinfoil hat and just say, hey, Ryan Condell knows some answers to some of the things that we ask questions about. Supposedly, he knows the ending of Dunk and Egg now. That is something he mentioned in an interview. And I always just wonder, with Winds of Winter always being so much closer every day, hopefully, to coming out, is Ryan Condell trying to stir up a little something for the fans to get to talk about? And maybe we'll see some answers in Winds of Winter. If anything, you know, this is a great nod and a fantastic Easter egg, and instills a lot of confidence in me that there's the right nerd making this show.